Hey, go to John 5. We're in a series called Back to Life. It's been a good series so far. I pray it stays that way. I hope it doesn't tank today. We're talking about back to life. I want to talk to you about something that every one of you can relate to. We're gonna look at two parallel people. We're going to look at somebody in John chapter 5, and that's where we're going to camp today. This is a two-part series, so I will give the rest of this in 2 weeks on the weekend. So go to John 5. No matter who you are, and no matter how spiritual you are, you at one time or another have gotten stuck. Some of you may be stuck right now. You can get stuck in your prayer life. Jesus said that there were people that prayed, and they prayed with vain repetition, okay? So they went through the motions, and they didn't even know it, but they were stuck in a religious activity that wasn't bringing any life. And so people get stuck in their prayer life. You get stuck in your walk with God, where 1 minute you're on top of a mountain, you're praising God, life's good, and then there's a flat line for whatever reason. I'm not trying to say why, but there's a flat line. You can get stuck in your jobs and careers, statistically, most people are working at their job simply for a paycheck, not out of any kind of passion. And it's sad, they get stuck. A lot of people start out with a passion for something, they get in a job, they incur some debt, all of a sudden they're getting choked, and then they stay there and they don't really pursue a passion, so they work a job, they're stuck. If you're married, you've been stuck a time or two. It doesn't mean it's bad. You can get stuck. Some couples get stuck in fighting. They really do. They get into this contiguous loop of fighting, and that's the way they dance in their marriage. And then there's other people where they get stuck in the, it's not bad, but it's not really good. And so they live in this kind of lazy middle, but nonetheless, they're stuck. We get stuck in our health. We get stuck in, not working out. We get stuck in eating. I was stuck in the donut cycle for years, okay? Now, I'm just going to self-efface right here. I'm going to humble myself, and I'm just going to tell you how bad this was. For years, I never met a donut shop I didn't like. I never met a donut shop that my car wouldn't just automatically turn into. It was crazy. It was like the drinking days. It used to be bars. The car would just go into the bars. Then, got delivered from that, and then the car just turns into donut shops. Love donuts. Love the worst donuts, the ones that are, fat and stuffed with cream, stuffed with jelly, man. It's not even fruit, man. It's just jelly. It's sugar and gelatin. Stuff. I love those things. Here's my record. This is so sad. I'm just going to humble myself. But I used to bring the donuts to our men's Bible study on Wednesday morning, and so I had to go by the Pink Box Donut house out there. And so I bought 2 dozen donuts. Now, it's a 15-minute drive from Lincoln to here. And so, do you know how many donuts some guy who's stuck in a rut of eating sweets, do you know how many donuts a guy I heard consume on the way to Bible study? 3 donuts. 3. No, I never crossed that line. 3 donuts, man. Do you know how hard that is to eat a donut, drink coffee, and drive at like 5:45 in the morning? That's bad, man. And I was stuck, but I'm proud to say that I was delivered out of that stuckness over 2 years ago. I haven't had a donut in 2 years. So that's not bad. So we all get stuck, and I'm just going to say that there is hope and help for your stuck state. Some of you started out this year and you made a bold declaration to God and you said, I'm going to read the Bible in a year, which means you should be at Numbers right now. But the last book was Leviticus. This is what I know about Leviticus, man. A lot of people get stuck at Leviticus and move no further. They get Leviticus. That's what happens. We get stuck. You get emotionally stuck. There's some people that, they'll latch onto a wound or a hurt or an offense, and bitterness and resentment will be, a part of their life, and they won't like it, and it will negatively affect them, but they become so familiar and so used to it as a means of coping that they stay stuck in bitterness and resentment, and people can camp there for years, and the Bible says that if you have bitterness in your heart, you run the risk of poisoning other people around you. It is. That's Hebrews somewhere 10, 11, or 12. Look it up. Live at peace with all men and holiness, for without no one will see the Lord. And don't be a part of bitterness. So, once again, this isn't, how many of you relate to anything I just said? Because I can keep going. If you haven't, I can keep going, and I'll nail everybody in here. Okay, so it's a given. We all get stuck. Now, let's take a look at stuck man. We'll call this guy stuck man number 1, okay? John chapter 5, stuck man number 1. After this, there was the feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. And there was in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethsaida, having 5 porches. Now let me just say, they have done archaeological digs. They have unearthed this place. It's a magnificent place. It's right next to St. Anne's Church, which was built in like the 11th century, which was built on a church in the 3rd century. And this, they said there was critics that had said that this wasn't an actual place for years, up until I want to say the mid-60s, where they kept digging and digging and digging, and they found these 5 colonnades, these 5 porches, and they found and excavated this place. And it goes down about 60 feet. And you can see this place that now everybody agrees that this is the Pool of Bethsaida. It's an absolutely amazing place. And in these lay a great multitude of sick people, of blind people, of lame people, of paralyzed people, waiting for the moving of the water. Now, this is a picture of stuck people, sick people, blind people, lame people, paralyzed people, people that are just existing with a faint hope that something might change, that an angel might change the water. And so this would be a place, and Bethsaida means house of mercy and grace. But what's interesting, it has a dual meaning. It also means a house of shame and disgrace. So I want you to think about these two things in the original language. It is a place of mercy and grace to the people that actually received healing. Okay, that's the reference points. That is the healing place, Bethsaida. It's where people get healed. But for the people that don't, it's called a place of shame and disgrace, because these are the discarded ones of society. So it has a dual meaning, but nonetheless, this is a place where there's a lot of stuck people that live their existence. They're alienated, ostracized from society with just a meager hope that something might change. Verse 4, for an angel would go down at certain times into the pool and stirred up the water, and whoever stepped in first after the stirring of the water was made well of whatever disease he had. So we know that there are some people that had to get healed, because you're just not going to have a bunch of people that just superstitiously go there if there wasn't any merit or validation to it. And so, there is, healing that has taken place. In verse 5, here's stuck man number 1. A certain man was there who had had an infirmity for 38 years. Everybody say 38 years. Now, 38 years is a long time. A lot of times, if you've ever heard anybody preach or teach out of this passage right here, they will say that, this guy was there day in and day out for 38 years. It doesn't say he was there for 38 years. It says that he was stuck in this condition for 38 years. He may have been there for 38 years, but it doesn't say that. It just says he was in the same condition for 38 years. But nonetheless, he was there a long time. And I want you to think about it. If he was there for 38 years, that's 465 consecutive months, 13,600 and some days. That is a long time if he was there that long. It doesn't say what he had, but in the original language, it suggests some kind of neurological atrophied state where you really can't move much, and there's kind of a disconnect. And so that's this guy right here. And when you think about this guy, think about this. And this, I think, represents a lot of people here. They are close, but they're not quite close enough. They're close to the place where there can be healing, but they're not close enough to get in. That really represents a lot of people with church, when you think about it, the church is a place of healing. Would you agree with that? It's a place of hope. Would you agree with that? It's a place of restoration and healing. It's a great place of God. That's who the church is. Not necessarily the building. It's who the church is, and it's who we represent that facilitates that. But isn't it interesting? You can have people come so close, but not be there and not participate in the life that God has them. You think about it, you have a Bible. The average American has 5 Bibles. The average American has 5 Bibles. Would you agree this book is the book of life? It's the word of life, man. This is the very words of God himself. But yet, there are people that don't read it. And if they don't read it, they don't participate in the life of God. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. It's all right here. And in him was life and light. And the light was the light. The life was the light of men. And it's here. And so every day you and I are invited to participate in the very life of God. But how much we just kind of neglect that and don't. But so we can be close. You can be close. You can have the words of healing, teaching, doctrine, theology, instruction, wholeness, everything right here. And just be close on the verge. But because we don't handle it or we don't get close, we live on the verge but never fulfilling the life that God has for us. How many of you would agree there's deliverance available for people that are bound? How many of you have ever either experienced or seen somebody delivered from some habitual sin, addiction, something like that? Let me see your hands. Now look around. Lock the elbow. I just want you to look around. They can't all be lying. That's what's available. That's how close it is. Close for all of us. So this guy is, he's stuck. He's close. He's on the verge. And when Jesus saw him lying there, and it suggests that Jesus didn't just have a passing glance at the guy, that Jesus actually perceived in the midst of all these people, he perceived and he knew by discernment this guy's condition and that he had been there for 38 years. And Jesus saw him lying there and he knew that he had already been in that condition a long time. And he said to him, do you want to be made well? That sounds like a funny question, doesn't it? I mean, if you see somebody that's emaciated and sick, and it is at a place that he's hoping he can get into the water, get healed, you think that's an obvious question. But think about it for a minute. Jesus never once asked a foolish question. Jesus asked over 300 questions in the Gospels, or over 300 questions. Not one of them was a foolish question. So he's asking this question. It's almost like he's not presuming anything. I mean, it's just amazing. Do you want to be made well? The sick man answered, sir, I don't have anybody to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up, but when I am coming down, another steps down before me. He's so stuck, he can't answer a simple question. This is a yes-no question. Do you want to be made well? Interactive A, yes. B, no. Short interactive question. He can't even answer a simple question because he's so stuck, and he gives a completely different thing, which is interesting. Jesus doesn't even address his excuses. Do you ever notice that when you and I make excuses, Jesus never dialogues with us about that? He never does. Do you realize that when you and I assign blame for something that we should be responsible for, he never just jumps in our little party and says, oh, I know how you feel. It's like, he doesn't even entertain it. And it's not because he's hard, it's just because it's irrelevant. When Jesus is on the scene, it's absolutely irrelevant what's gone on up to that point. So Jesus asks him a question, and the guy is so stuck, he can't give an answer. He gives excuses. Now, let me just say this. You and I can either make a life or make excuses, but we can't make both. You can make excuses. You can. Or you can make a life, but you can't make both. And this guy made excuses, and Jesus didn't even address it. Now, let me just say this, and you have to hear this with soft tones and compassion. Here's the reality about the human condition. Not everybody wants to be made well. People can say they want to be made well. Only God knows, and I'm not even suggesting that you and I have the right to even judge who really wants to get well. That's where it gets a little dicey. But if you're around the planet long enough, you will know that it appears that some people don't really want to get well because with not being well, you get a lot of attention. You get a lot of drama. You get a lot of people that will cater and coddle to you. Once again, you have to hear this the right way or you'll misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's everybody. I'm not even saying it's a lot of people. I'm just saying there's a lot of people that don't really want to get well. And there's a lot of people that will go create a lot of drama to let you think that they do. You'll get sucked in. You'll lose your life in the midst of it, and they never did want to get well. The language of somebody that really wants to be made well is not the excuse of how they got there. The language of people that want to get well is, what do I do now? What do I do now? And can you help me? That's the language. Now, once again, that's not discounting bondage. It's not discounting. No, I get it, but I'm just saying there's a lot of positive benefits for somebody that's chronic. I've seen people, let me just say this. Once again, this is risky. This is risky. I'm not telling you to be harsh, judgmental, but I'm telling you, everybody that has a sign on the side of the road that says, need food, need help, need a job, no money, 27 kids, don't know what I'm going to do, God bless you, is not any, a lot of times they really don't want help. Really don't. They really, really don't. I've known some of those people. Now, once again, I'm not telling you to be, I would rather give and be wrong than not give and have my heart hard. Right? Well, that's not good stewardship. Well, if Jesus can have Judas taking money out of the till, and he didn't even really address it, it's not that big a deal. But I'm just saying, not everybody wants to be well. You have to ask yourself, do you really want to get well? Do you really want to get whole? Do you really want to be a Christ follower? Do you really want to be a disciple? Do you really want to let go of some stuff? Because I tell you, in any wholeness that we get, we leave things behind. He's going to leave an identity behind. He's going to leave a life behind. He is going to leave a bunch of things behind. And so that's a question you and I have to continually grapple with. You know, do I really want to be made well? And, you know, Jesus really knows who wants to be made well. He really does. He knows what to do. He knows what we should do. So Jesus doesn't even answer it. He says, Jesus said to him, rise, take up your bed, and walk. And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed, and walked. And that day was the Sabbath. You think about it. If you've been around atrophied people, if you've been around people that have been victims of neurological malfunctions, and you will see atrophy and a withering, or if you've ever broken a limb and you've been in a cast for a few months, you know, everything shrinks up, everything shrivels up, and you have no strength. So in this miracle, man, this dude got, you know, calves, biceps, quads, abs. I mean, that would have been kind of an amazing deal. Like somebody, you know, plugged him in and like, whoa, here we go. I mean, that's what Jesus did to the guy, man. And you know, he had to have enough strength to pick up his mat. So this dude got healed and grew muscles, and, you know, I'm still waiting for that, but I don't know. I'm 58. I still got a little hope left. Okay, so it's the Sabbath, and the Jews therefore said to him who was cured, it is the Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to carry your bed. Okay, here's some stuck people. Stuck in religion. You're more preoccupied with the burden that this man is carrying than the burden God lifted off of this man. What is the guy thinking? What is the guy thinking? Now, wait a minute. I've been in this condition for 38 years, and you're telling me it was the wrong day? You know what he said in Hebrew? Go fish. Not really, he didn't say that, but seriously. Now, you're telling me I'm lying, I'm a crippled dude, and I'm lying infirm for 38 years, and this guy, who he didn't even really know who Jesus was, you telling me I get healed, I grow all kinds of muscles and stuff, and my life is complete, and you're telling me it was the wrong day of the week? Are you serious? Well, that's what stuck in religion looks like. You're doing the wrong things at the wrong times. It was the wrong prescription. That's why Jesus said, you know, you proselytize and convert, and you make people twice the son of hell. That's harsh. That's what they did. This guy just got out of 38 years of bondage. They're trying to put him back in bondage. Unbelievable. Or as I like to say, unstinking believable. If you were to go down and read verse 18, it says, for this reason, the Jews tried harder to kill him. So apparently, healing a guy on the wrong day is worth murdering the guy that did it. That's warped. That's warped religion right there. But that's the condition that they were in. Unbelievable. Now they're going to try to kill Jesus. Now, let's go to stuck man number 2. We don't have time to pick on the Jews and the Pharisees here in this point, so we'll move on. We'll give them a pass right now, but we'll go to stuck man number 2, okay? And let's just we're going to draw some parallel observations here. 1 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 9. You ever heard of a guy named Jabez? Okay, there was a famous book that came out. It was a New York Times bestseller, made tons of money. And it was all about a way that you could pray that you could get God to bless you, which sells a lot because even a heathen, if there's a small chance that they might get blessed, they'll pray some prayer. Unfortunately, this prayer that we're going to read in this little 2-verse story has nothing to do with blessings as we presuppose it, or any type of material gain, and it certainly isn't about a formula that you and I are to adopt or an equation to get God to do something. It's far deeper and it's far richer than that. And let's pay attention to the deep meaning of this thing, okay? Verse 9, now Jabez was more honorable than his brothers, and his mother called his name Jabez, saying, because I bore him in pain. And Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, oh, that you would bless me indeed and enlarge my territory, that your hand would be with me, and that you would keep me from evil, that I might not cause pain. So God granted him what he requested. Now, that's what his name. Now, unfortunately, the times that we live in, names we don't really associate with deep meanings. A lot of Christians do. They get it, and they'll choose biblical names for their kids. But, we pick, what's the most popular names. And so that's how a lot of, people name their kids. What's popular? What sounds cool? What's unique? But in biblical times, names always had deep meaning that helped define destiny. And God would change names of people to help eradicate what they were like in the previous dispensation and then give them a furtherance of what he wanted to do that would be a redemptive name. And so, names are a big deal. So this lady apparently has a pretty difficult childbirth. Labor and delivery, I guess, was tough. Now, this is what I know about women that have had children. They like talking about how hard it was. This is dicey right now, man. This is dicey. Guys talk about their things, but women talk about these things. And when you hear a group of women, and they're talking about, they're holding their babies, the labor and delivery is going to come up. And they'll start talking, oh, you should hear. It was either, I went natural, no drugs, hour and 45 minutes, slid right out. Or, oh man, that kid was this big and his head was this big. And I grunted and I groaned and man, it was 20 some hours and that sounds pretty difficult. Okay, that sounds really hard. I know a lady that actually, she showed up at church. She had her baby on Friday. She showed up at church on Sunday and she had totally bloodshot eyes. I thought maybe she, was it that hard of a labor? But I said, hey, what? And when I said, hey, whoa, what happened? I came out. I wasn't very pastoral. It was like, what happened? And she goes, I was giving birth and I blew blood vessels in my eyes. I said, you win. I don't know what you win. You win something. So, this labor and delivery is hard. But even Jesus said, that when a mother gives birth, there is pain. But it's not even to be compared to the joy that comes when the child is born. It is. So children are always a blessing. They always bring joy. But for some reason, this lady, and I don't know how hard a delivery it was, but she had it and she thought, this is so hard. I'm causing your name. I'm going to call you sorrow and pain. So it's like everywhere this guy went, oh, there's pain. There's sorrow. There's suffering. That was part of his identity. That's a bad rap. Thanks, Mom. Wow. But I want you to notice something right here. The first line there, it says, now Jabez was more honorable than his brothers. I want to say this, that even though you've been labeled from an early age, no matter what the negative label is, you don't have to live down to it. You don't have to live down to it. And here's a great case right here. He is not totally whole or he wouldn't pray. So we know he suffered some ill effects of that labeling and that identity. But it says he was more honorable, and this is what it means. It means that he had more weight and stature and substance and dignity than all his brothers. So in the midst of the bad rap and the bad name and the bad label and the bad identity, he rose above it and still became a man of stature, of weight. It literally means to have weight, to be a man of substance. So I'm saying, don't buy into the lie that you need an excuse for who you are because of what somebody said about you. You don't have to live that way. You don't. You can choose to, but you don't. And that is what speaks right here. Ultimately, God is more concerned about the person that you're becoming than what you inherited, the circumstance you inherited. And this is just a great case in point, man. And I know every one of us in here, I don't know of anybody that was born with a silver spoon in this room. I don't know anybody that had it like Peachy King. Everybody had it hard. Everybody had trials. Question is, will you rise above it? Will you invite God? Will you humble yourself and ask God to lift you up to the place he wants you to be? That's the question right there. Now, what's interesting here is, once again, you read the book that came out, and I don't want to disparage the guy that wrote it because he's a great teacher, but here's the deal. When he even when he prays this, he calls on the God of Israel. He says, "Oh, that you would bless me." It literally means to kneel down. So when he's approaching God, he's approaching it from the standpoint that he's not neglecting the good stuff that God has given, the honor that he's given. He's not neglecting that at all. What he's saying is there's unfinished business, I believe, in my life that God wants to take care of. I would say that to every single person in here. What is the unfinished business that God wants to bring wholeness to and integrity to your life? Every person has it until the day that we die. God will still have some things that he wants to put into our life and take out of our lives. The unfinished business. And so this guy, when he says, bless me, you know what he's saying? Here's what it literally means. To kneel down and submit and worship God and ask God with humility and faith to give me something of value. And for him, what's the most valuable thing he can ask for? It's not money. It's not riches. It's not materialism. You know what it is? I don't want to cause pain. Keep me from evil that I would not cause pain. You know what that is? That prayer is spot on. And I'm telling you, it isn't about a method and a formula on how to get your prayers answered, and it's not about getting rich, and it's not about any about that. It's about God bringing completeness to your incompleteness. And to me, that is absolutely powerful. Now, I'm just going to give you just a couple of things because I'm going to pick this up in 2 weeks because, you know what, I resigned from rushing through a message. You know what, I just don't want to be hyperactive, you know, seriously. 1, 2, 3, did you get that? You know, no, stop, take a breath. I'm going to be relaxed. Just, you know, that's me. I'm not putting that on you. That's me. Maybe Francis, but he might put it on me a little bit. Francis in the front row. So, anyways, so just here's some observations about change, and we'll parallel these lives. Okay, maybe back, maybe fired. If not, I'll do a podcast or something, you know. The stuck in unemployment. Okay. Just some things about change and transformation. We're designed by God to change. There really is no static place with us. Even our skin renews itself every 27 days. I mean, every 27 days you lose your skin and you get new skin. And I know that's true because I got it on Google, and it's true. And it wasn't a face cream commercial or anything. I mean, this is what happens, you know, your dermis. Yeah, your dermis. I'll stop right there. Okay. So we're designed physiologically by God to change. And I want you to think about this. It's a privilege given by God and a stewardship that we get to change. I'm not even talking cosmetic change. That's easy. And Jesus said, you know, cleaning the outside of the cup is easy, man. The real change and the real transformation takes on the inside, works its way out. It's not external. And so it's a privilege. And the other reality is that if something doesn't change, it's dead. If something doesn't change, it's dead. Let me also say, you can't force growth and change. It's a cooperating with the grace of God for change. In fact, I have a reputation in my household that I kill a lot of plants. I do. House plants. I kill a lot of plants. And you know how I do it? And my wife tells me, this is how I do it. You overwater them. Because in my brain, I think more water, grow taller, grow faster. I end up drowning them. I do. I mean, seriously, see, I'll be away somewhere. Send me a picture. Here's the thing you killed. Because I told you, stop watering it. I do. I got one that's hanging on for dear life right now, man. It is like, So God is not trying to make you grow, force you grow. Nobody's trying to make you grow. Everybody grows at their own rate. It's different. Change is not neutral. It's never neutral. So as far as these guys here, both are stuck and need change or an awakening. They need that. It's obvious. Both have identity issues. Okay? Jabez, labeled by his mom. The invalid, labeled by religion, culture, and circumstances. And I'm telling you, the labels that you and I wear are powerful. I mean, they really are. They're powerful. And, you know, we live in a fallen world, a not yet redeemed world. And so we suffer the effects of the fall of man. We suffer the effects of fallenness, faulty identities. I mean, when we were estranged and alienated from God, we began to take matters into our own hands. We began to create our own life instead of living subordinate to the life God created us. And it didn't work very well. And so now you have identity crisis. People don't know who they are. And people say things like, I'm trying to find myself and things like that. And there's self-help books and all that. Only God can give you your identity. Well, the false identity is constructed by people. That's what we do. And the three main drivers of our identity that you're subject to, every one of us in here, is the perceptions other people have of us, the possessions that we have, or the positions that we hold. There's value judgments based on all those things. That's why when you meet somebody, the first question you usually ask them is what? What do you do? Now, if they say, I'm a neurobrain surgeon, what do you say? Whoa, you kidding me? I mean, it's like, whoa. But if a guy says, I'm a sanitation engineer, what do you say? Oh, you're a garbage man. So right off the bat, there's value judgments. We don't even talk about an honest work ethic. That's not even in there. It's what we assign value to as far as position is. We do it with possessions. What kind of car do you drive? Oh, I'm getting a new one. That's what we know. People get their identity attached to their cars they drive. You know, their four-wheel depreciation, you know, cars they drive. They do. They get a certain amount of, and that's why people will go out and, you know, have $500-600 a month car payments. So they can drive something shiny for a while and hope nobody hits it and park it, you know, in the back 40 and, yeah. It's true, right? It's unfortunate, but it's true. And so, you know, if your and my net worth is connected to our self-worth, you got problems. I drive a 94 Volvo. It's a beater. I like it. Okay, you're not impressed with that. Okay, well, forget it. I'm not owned. Not owned by the car, obviously. And it doesn't own me either. I mean, I have insurance. I hope it gets stolen. Anyways. Once again, people, if they live in the right house, in the right neighborhood, they feel good about themselves. And in fact, I read a study the other day that said that, this article was written in the last 10 years, and it said for the first time in history in America that the average person could make any kind of life they wanted for themselves. That's how it was described. And when you think about it, you can get credit instantly. If you don't have money, you can get credit. You don't have a job, you can get money. I mean, you can do all these things. You can live kind of a propped up life for a little bit, a little time. But right now, people can live any kind of life they want. First time in history. They also noted that this is also the most depressed generation in the history of America. Maybe there's a problem with constructing a life that we think we want and the life that we think we need that's different from the life that God wants to construct for us. Maybe that gap right there is what causes depression. And so once again, this is all part of identity. Now, I'll also say this, we're going to close right here, but I would also say this, that all of us in here, to one degree or another, we care what people think. On some level, would you agree with that? Somewhere there has to be a point, not where there's a callous, defensive, I don't care what people think, but where your identity is so rich and so right in God that his assessment is really the only assessment that matters. I mean, that really is the place to go after. Now, I'm gonna tell you a horror story. A horror story. I have some good friends. We had lunch with them 2 weeks ago. He lives on the East Coast. He moved to New Hampshire. I've been in New Hampshire. Beautiful. It's a beautiful place. His friend moved into a neighborhood, and when they moved in there, a neighbor came over. Welcome to the neighborhood. This is a true story. Welcome to the neighborhood. And said, a bunch of the neighbors want to have you over for dinner. Oh, wow, awesome, thanks, that's great. They go over to the neighbor's house for dinner. All the other neighbors are there. Okay, wow, this is great, a welcome party. Gosh, cooking food, the whole 9 yards. They get there, they're enjoying the evening, and the guy says, we're gonna be back in a few minutes. Odd. So all these people, the neighbors, get up and they go to another room. Ah, that's weird. So him and his wife are just sitting there eating, and they're all in another room. They all come out, they come back, and here's what they say. They say, we just want you to know, you're in our neighborhood, we voted, and you won't be invited to any of the parties that we have, any of the get-togethers. We'll be cordial to you, and we'll wave when we see you. That's a quote. And I'm thinking, now what would I have done? Oh, we voted too. Your food sucks. We don't like your neighborhood. We're out of here. Later. That is just bizarre to me. Does that cramp any of your brains? How many of you want to move to New Hampshire? And apparently that's quasi kind of normal. I mean, it was like, and I guess the criterion for being in was you had to go to the same grade school. So a few months later, man, they sold their house and moved out of there. Imagine that. I mean, people's identity is in the place they live in, who they think they have the power to sovereignly associate with. And then my buddy told me, he goes, in the neighborhood he moved into, once again, this is bizarre land, man. This is not Pleasantville. Moves in, he's a gardener. He plants a garden in the front yard. He's telling me, 2 weeks ago, he's telling me the story. Plants a garden. He's got a green thumb. Neighbor comes running over. What are you doing? Planting flowers. Well, now, wait a minute. My buddy's like, what? He goes, now, where'd you get those flowers? He says, Home Depot. Well, our neighborhood buys our flowers at this nursery 2 towns over, and that's kind of really the only acceptable place that we get our flowers from. To which my buddy, who is really sharp, said, that's really funny because did you know that nursery sells their flowers to Home Depot? Whoops. Whoops. Crazy, man. Let me just tell you, if you don't know who you are in Jesus, you will wilt like a bad flower.